Okay, let's unpack this because, it used to be that you could draw a really hard, thick line around the things you own.
Oh, totally. A very clear boundary.
Right. Your smartphone was just this little glass rectangle that lived in your pocket,
Yeah.
and your car was a heavy metal box sitting in your driveway.
Yeah, you put gas in one, you plug the other into the wall. It was completely binary.
Exactly. Completely binary. But jumping into today's deep dive, here in 2026, that boundary it's completely gone.
It really is.
We are looking at a huge stack of sources today. We've got reports from the Beijing Auto Show, the Mobile World Congress, Tesla's Q3 financials, and some of the latest EV charging infrastructure guides.
And tying all those together reveals a pretty wild picture.
It really does.
Yeah.
The mission for this deep dive is to make sense of this dizzying convergence. Because we aren't just looking at vehicles and phones anymore. We are looking at these mobile AI-driven energy nodes.
Yeah, these massive computers on wheels.
Yeah. And behind all the glossy marketing, there is this brutal global war being waged for supply chain dominance and consumer trust, honestly.
Which is exactly why we need to break this down. Because it affects every piece of tech you buy.
Absolutely. So for you, the listener, we are framing this as your ultimate shortcut to catching up on the most critical tech shifts of the year.
And to really understand the software and the AI, we kind of have to start with the physical stuff, right?
You do, the physical layer.
Yeah.
Because before we can talk about the advanced AI running your devices, we have to look at how we actually power them.
Yeah, the charging infrastructure.
Yeah.
Which has historically been a massive headache.
The biggest barrier to EV adoption, hands down. But looking at these infrastructure guides, 2026 is the year the walled gardens finally collapsed.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the physical layer is always the hardest part of tech to standardize. But the shift we are seeing right now in North America is just unprecedented.
It's a total surrender to the North American charging standard, right? NACS.
Basically, yeah. If you are driving a non-Tesla EV today, say a Ford, a GM, a Volvo, even a Porsche, you are finally getting access to over 23,000 Tesla superchargers.
Which is huge.
It is. Automakers are shipping these factory-approved NACS adapters so their older CCS cars can physically connect to Tesla's network.
And I really want to emphasize that phrase, factory approved, because it is so tempting to just go online and buy some cheap third-party adapter. Right?
Oh, please don't do that.
Seriously, the physics here are completely unforgiving. We are talking about direct current fast charging pushing hundreds of amps of electricity.
It's an incredible amount of power.
Yeah, and if a cheap adapter has even a microscopic gap in the physical connection, it creates an electrical arc.
And that arc generates thousands of degrees of heat in seconds.
Thousands. It will literally melt the plastic, fuse the plug to your car, and instantly void your vehicle's warranty.
Which is exactly why we are seeing the rollout of Magic Docks.
Right, explain those quickly.
So Magic Docks are basically superchargers that have the adapter built directly into the station itself. It locks into place securely to eliminate that human error.
Which is smart. But, while North America is still kind of battling over the physical shape of the plug, Europe solved this entire friction problem years ago through software.
They really did. The numbers out of Europe in these reports are wild.
France alone just crossed 192,000 public charging points. That is a 62% year-over-year increase.
Wow.
And they're delivering an average of 788 kilowatt hours per point. But the hardware isn't even the magic part over there. It's the what they call universal roaming.
Right, because in North America, you still need a dozen different apps on your phone.
Exactly. It's a nightmare. But in Europe, universal roaming is just the baseline. You grab an RFID pass from an operator like ChargeMap, and you just tap it.
Seamless.
Totally. You can drive across 3 different countries, use 10 different networks, and it just works.
And that software standardization has completely upended their market hierarchy.
How so?
Well, when consumers aren't locked into a specific app ecosystem, they become incredibly price sensitive.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, so because the European network is so open, Tesla has actually fallen out of the top 5 in user experience rankings there.
Wait, really? Out of the top 5?
Yeah. Local operators like Le Pen are beating them on convenience. And networks like Electra are undercutting everyone by offering this highly competitive pricing at just 39 euro cents per kilowatt hour.
Wow, so open competition actually works. But even with 192,000 chargers in France, there are still dead zones, right? Like charging deserts.
Definitely. The grid just doesn't reach everywhere.
Which brings us to this startup in the report called BeeChargeDev. I love this concept.
It's super innovative.
They're deploying actual fleets of mobile chargers. They just launched the Apex 300 program. They're expanding into Mexico City, and they're targeting 1,000 units across North America.
And BeeCharged is fascinating because they aren't just, a giant battery on a flatbed truck.
Right, it's way smarter than that.
Yeah, they use a platform they call Predictive Smart Charging, or PSC-AI.
Okay, break that down for us.
Basically, it uses an API to integrate directly into your car's telematics. The software monitors your battery's state of charge, its degradation, everything.
So it knows when you're in trouble before you do.
Exactly. If it predicts you won't make it to your destination, it autonomously dispatches a mobile charger. One tap on your phone and they meet you before you are ever stranded.
And they're fast, too. The report says they deliver 65 to 70 kilowatts on site. You get a full session in like 20 to 30 minutes.
Which is a lifesaver if you're in the middle of nowhere.
Okay, but I want to back up a second. Let's look at this Tesla NACS thing from a purely competitive standpoint. It feels like the EU forcing Apple to adopt USB-C.
That's a good analogy, yeah.
But if Tesla is voluntarily giving up its exclusive charger network to Ford and GM, aren't they losing their biggest competitive moat? Like, why help the competition at all?
It definitely looks like a surrender on the surface, but it's actually this massive pivot. Tesla is trading vehicle hardware exclusivity for infrastructure dominance.
Okay, so they want to be the gas station.
Precisely. They see the global EV market fragmenting. By opening the network, they want to profit off every single brand of car that plugs in.
So they take a margin on the electricity itself.
Right. They are positioning to be the universal utility company of the future. And startups like BeeCharged prove that relying solely on fixed utility infrastructure is just too slow.
Yeah, getting grid approvals takes, 18 to 24 months.
Exactly. The market demands power today, wherever the cars physically are.
But getting all that power to the plug is really only half the battle. Once it gets there, the battery inside the device actually has to absorb it without melting.
Which is a huge technical hurdle.
And that's what's triggering this desperate hardware race. Because you and I, we don't want to wait 30 minutes anymore.
No one does. So the physical limits of lithium-ion chemistry are just being pushed to the absolute breaking point.
Let's talk about the cars first. There's this Mercedes-Benz rolling laboratory called the ELF, the Experimental Charging Vehicle.
Oh, they're dual charging tests.
Yes, it's frankly absurd. They hit 900 kilowatts on a standard CCS plug. That adds 100 kilowatt hours in 10 minutes.
That is massive power.
And then it gets crazier. Using a commercial truck megawatt charging system, they pushed it over 1,000 kilowatts.
To pull 1,000 kilowatts into a passenger car, I mean, the ambient heat alone is staggering.
Yeah, the thermal management systems have to work miracles just to keep the car from catching fire, right?
Absolutely. And simultaneously, looking at the MWC 2026 reports, smartphone makers are doing the exact same thing.
Right, pushing 300-watt ultra-fast charging.
Yeah, alongside these brand new silicon carbon anode batteries.
Okay, explain the silicon carbon thing. Why is that important?
So it's a brilliant solution to a deeply physical problem. Normally, batteries use graphite for the anode, but silicon can hold up to 10 times more lithium ions than graphite.
10 times. That's
Yeah.
a massive jump.
It is. But the historical problem was that when silicon absorbs all that lithium, it physically swells up. It expands and literally cracks, destroying the battery.
Oh, so you just get a dead phone after a week.
Right. But by blending the silicon with carbon, engineers have managed to stabilize it. It prevents the swelling.
Meaning they can pack way more power into a thinner device.
Exactly. It increases energy density without making the phone thicker.
Okay, so that is a genuine, mathematically proven breakthrough. But then we have the marketing tricks.
Oh, the hype machine.
Yeah, we've got to bring up this YouTube critique from the Electric Viking.
Yeah.
He was looking at this pitch from MG for their new MG4X SUV.
The solid-state one?
Yeah. So they're launching this car for a super cheap $14,700. And they are heavily marketing it as having a liquid solid-state battery.
Which is an oxymoron.
It totally is.
Yeah.
They openly say it is 95% solid and 5% liquid.
Right.
But the specs don't show any breakthrough at all. The 54 kilowatt-hour battery only gets around 400 kilometers of range, and the car still weighs a totally normal 1,640 to 1,755 kilograms.
The math just doesn't add up for a next-gen battery.
It's the technological equivalent of selling fat-free water. It's a buzzword. If 1,000 kilowatt car chargers becoming real, why do companies risk their reputations on this kind of marketing fluff?
It's a masterclass in misdirection, really. In a hyper-competitive market, perceived leaps drive headlines.
So they just want the buzz.
Yeah. The phrase solid state implies drastically higher energy density and lower weight. because a true solid-state battery doesn't need heavy cooling systems or protective armor.
Because it's not full of flammable liquid.
Exactly. But the moment you leave 5% liquid in that battery, you still have a flammable electrolyte.
So you still have to build the exact same heavy armored box around it.
Yep, which is why the weight hasn't dropped. It doesn't even beat standard LFP or NMC batteries from giants like CTL or BYD.
So the lesson is, always look at the curb weight and the range. Look past the buzzwords.
Focus on the math. Always focus on the math.
Right. But, while the hardware engineers are fighting over these literal millimeters of battery chemistry, the real battleground has completely moved to software.
It's all about the AI now.
Yeah. According to the MWC report, generative AI smartphones will account for 37% of shipments this year. That is a $433 billion market.
AI is no longer just a cool party trick.
No. It's not just a voice assistant you ask for the weather. It is foundational architecture built into the OS. And the buzzword everywhere is agentic AI.
Agentic AI represents a fundamental shift. Previously, you'd ask an AI a question, it processed it in the cloud, and sent the text back.
Right, it was just fetching information.
But agentic AI uses powerful neural processing units, NPUs, built directly onto your phone's microchip.
So it's processing locally.
Exactly,
Yeah.
which allows the assistant to autonomously execute multi-step tasks across your apps without needing to ping a server.
And we saw the exact same architectural shift at the Beijing Auto Show. The McKinsey report noted this massive focus on what they called AI agents on wheels.
Giant smartphones you can drive.
Exactly. These are in-car, large language models that remember your context and execute complex reasoning. And Tesla's Q3 update reinforces this completely.
They're betting everything on AI.
They really are. They launched full self-driving version 14. They brought their robo-taxi models directly to consumers. And they expanded their Bay Area ride-hailing service.
And look at the compute power they're using to do it.
It's insane. They grew their AI training compute to 81,000 H100 GPU equivalents.
81,000, that's supercomputer territory.
It really is. They're even deploying Grok into North American vehicles. Here's where it gets really interesting, though.
Okay.
If my phone is proactively managing my life, right, reading my emails, acting on my behalf, and my car is proactively driving itself, who is actually in the driver's seat?
It's a huge psychological shift.
Doesn't the listener just feel this profound loss of control?
It completely comes down to trust. The race isn't just about making the smartest autonomous driving system anymore. It's about who can create an AI that genuinely understands user intent.
Intent is the key word there.
Right. The McKinsey report points out that the AI has to be functional, usable, and genuinely good.
Because if it does something you didn't want it to do, you panic.
Exactly. But if it perfectly executes your intent, you don't feel like you've lost control. You feel like you've successfully delegated it.
And whoever masters that delegation wins the market.
They secure unshakable brand loyalty.
Wow. Okay, but all this incredible AI, the local MPUs, the massive server farms, it all relies on a physical supply chain.
And right now, that supply chain is a mess.
It is completely redrawing the geopolitical map. And just to be clear, we're just looking at the facts presented in these reports, not taking any political sides here.
Right, just reading the data.
Exactly. The McKinsey report from the Beijing Auto Show makes it very clear. China is the new center of gravity.
The shift is undeniable. Western multinational corporations have had to completely change their strategy.
How so?
They used to make products for China, treating it just as a massive consumer base. Now the realization is they have to build with China.
So deep co-development.
Yes, they must deeply co-develop with Chinese partners or they won't survive. Meanwhile, the Chinese OEMs are going global.
Yeah, the report mentioned they had these standalone multi-brand pavilions at the auto show. They look like the legacy giants of old.
And their R&D efficiency is staggering.
That part blew my mind. Multiple companies launching full-size flagship SUVs simultaneously.
Across different sub-brands, too.
Right. I mean, doing that proves their domestic supply chain is highly integrated. Even their Tier 1 and Tier 2 suppliers are stepping out of the shadows.
Dominating tech like drive-by-wire chassis and thermal management.
The legacy auto giants seem to just be turning into hardware shells for Chinese software. But the West is responding.
Tesla's definitely fighting back.
They are. Tesla just posted $1.6 billion in operating income, a record 497,099 deliveries in Q3 alone.
Which proves they can still scale.
Yeah. They're fighting back on affordability with a $36,990 Model 3 Standard. and expanding their energy dominance with Megapack 3, launching at their Megafactory in Houston.
But everyone, Tesla, Chinese OEMs, Apple, everyone is hitting the same physical constraints.
The memory crunch.
Yes. The MWC report highlighted a severe global memory crunch. AI data centers are eating up all the high bandwidth memory.
The HBM chips.
Right. And because foundries prioritize those highly profitable AI chips, they make fewer standard DRAM and NAND chips.
Which are the chips that go into our phones and cars.
Exactly. Driving up costs across the board.
And Tesla's financials also noted near-term uncertainties from shifting global trade policies, tariffs, fiscal policy.
It's a very turbulent trade environment.
So synthesizing all this, if memory chips are too expensive and these global supply chains are fracturing, does this technological golden age just grind to a halt for the average consumer?
It doesn't halt, but the rules of the game change entirely. Competitive advantage is no longer just about software intelligence.
What is it about?
Supply chain resilience. Tesla is surviving because they control their ecosystem from lithium refining in Texas to building their own supercomputers.
And the Chinese OEMs have their highly integrated domestic supply chains.
Right. The ultimate winners are the companies that can actually source the parts to build their visions.
That makes total sense. So let's briefly recap this crazy journey. We've gone from navigating NACS supercharger adapters to dodging solid-state battery marketing hype.
We watched our phones and cars merge into agentic AI nodes.
All against the backdrop of this massive global supply chain war and memory crunch.
And the main takeaway for you, the listener, whether you're buying a new smartphone or a used EV, is that the standalone device is dead.
Completely dead. Everything is part of a connected, intelligent ecosystem now.
Which leads to some pretty wild future scenarios.
Yes. I want to end on a final provocative thought for you to mull over. We saw in the reports that both Mercedes-Benz and Tesla are heavily investing in bidirectional charging.
Vehicle to grid, vehicle to home, V2G, and V2H.
Right. Mercedes is testing automated inductive charging in something they call a virtual energy account. And Tesla has its auto bidder software running alongside its Powerwalls.
Which turns the car into a massive mobile power plant.
Exactly. So think about this. If millions of EVs are soon plugged into a universal network, acting as massive AI-controlled batteries.
Buying electricity when it's cheap at night?
Yes. Autonomously buying low and then selling it back to the grid for a profit during peak hours. If your car is doing all of that for you, are you still just a driver?
It completely changes the definition of ownership.
Or are you about to become a miniature walking utility company? The line between you and the grid is completely gone.
Something to really think about.
It definitely is. Thanks for jumping into this deep dive with us. We'll catch you on the next one.